This is like the first time, like these are ICC arrest warrants coming out is like one of the rare times that Israel's being held accountable on an international stage. We know, just off of what Donald Trump said, at least 200 to 300,000 people are dead. Okay, so what is the International Criminal Court, right? The International Criminal Court, guys, ICC is an intergovernmental organization, an international tribunal seated in The Hague, Netherlands. It is the first and only permanent international court with jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for the international crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. The ICC is distinct from the International Court of Justice, an organ of the an organ of the United Nations that hears disputes between states. Established in 2002 pursuant to the multilateral Rome Statute, the ICC is considered by its proponents to be a major step towards justice and an innovation in international law and human rights. The court has faced a number of criticisms. Some governments have refused to recognize the court's assertion of jurisdiction, with other civil groups also accusing the court of bias, Eurocentrism, and racism. Others have also questioned the effectiveness of the court as a means of upholding international law. If I'm not mistaken, I think our guy Jack Smith, aka, remember deranged Jack Smith, the guy that went over after Trump? I think he was a judge here because he was at The Hague. And I think he's probably going to go back, as a matter of fact, to The Hague. As you guys know, he was the special prosecutor on the Trump investigations on the federal level. He brought forward the document case, the classified document case, and he also brought forward the insurrection case in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, man, ICC, that is who they are. The United States, I will tell you guys, doesn't recognize the ICC or take them seriously, but other countries do. There's a bunch of countries that participate. Let's see here. Member states. Okay, so top 10 contributions as of December 31st, 2020. Japan, Germany, France, United Kingdom, Italy, Brazil, Canada, South Korea, Australia, Spain, and then the others. Okay, there's a bunch. All right, wow. Okay, they got it so much where, yeah, read some. Afghanistan, Argentina, Albania, Armenia, Andorra, Bangladesh, Cabo Verde, yeah. So literally a whole bunch here. And if any of you guys are interested, I could go ahead and give you guys a link. But there's a bunch of countries here. Matter of fact, interesting enough, Poland participates in it, guys. And Poland said that if Netanyahu went to Poland for the 80th anniversary for Auschwitz, the concentration camp, right, one of the most famous concentration camps from the Holocaust, they would arrest him. So he actually didn't go to that. And it's interesting because Netanyahu actually, guys, is Polish. So now that we know what the ICC is, let's go ahead and read a little bit about this. So we got some videos to react to and cover this. Trump signs an executive order sanctioning the International Criminal Court. The order includes financial sanctions and visa restrictions against ICC officials found to have assisted in investigations of U.S. citizens or allies. President Donald Trump on Thursday signed an executive order sanctioning the International Criminal Court, accusing the body of improperly targeting the United States and Israel. The order includes both financial sanctions and visa restrictions against unspecified ICC officials and their family members found to have assisted in investigations of U.S. citizens or allies. NBC News previously reported on the contents of the order in a fact sheet it obtained. Last November, the ICC sparked bipartisan backlash in Washington by issuing arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, which, by the way, dumbass Ethan Klein didn't even know who Yoav Gallant was. But he's over here defending like the idiot. Think of Yoav Gallant, guys, is the equivalent to the Secretary of Defense here in the United States. Runs the military, right? And obviously, the Prime Minister is the equivalent to President. And several Hamas leaders simultaneously. The Trump administration order claims this created a shameful moral equivalency. So, which that's kind of funny that he would say that. It's a shameful moral equivalency. Here's the thing. You guys know where I stand on this. If you're going to call Hamas a terrorist organization, which I understand and actually agree with, right? I agree that they're a terrorist organization because if we're going to keep it to facts, right, and go off of definitions, the use of violence, right, to perpetuate a political ideology, especially to this point where at first this situation started off as self-defense, but after the fact now it's just them beating up on them, right? If you're using violence to perpetuate a political ideology and you're not necessarily defending yourself, like Israel now, they claim they're defending themselves, but the reality is they're not. They're just like beating the hell out of these dudes. Then you can make the argument that it is terrorism. So same situation. I think both Hamas and the IDF are terrorist organizations, right? Both of them. If you actually look at the definition of terrorism, both organizations fit the mold almost perfectly. So let's see here. The court said there was no reason to believe that Netanyahu and Gallant used starvation as a method of warfare by restricting humanitarian and intentionally, targeting civilians in Israel's campaign in Gaza. Charges Israeli officials dismissed as false and anti-Semitic. Yeah, I remember when that shit came out. They're all saying, bro, this is anti-Semitic. So this was some of the news that broke originally. We'll just play the video here.
Has issued arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister the last few.
And this dropped 2 months ago, November 21st, 2024. So right at the end of last year, they dropped these arrest warrants for them. So yes, guys, Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal that's wanted internationally.
Few minutes, the International Criminal Court at The Hague has issued arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Among the things that the ICC is saying it is issuing these warrants for.
There they both are right there. That's Netanyahu on the left and Yoav Gallant on the right. Shout out to Al Boys. Breaking, the ADL is saying that anti-Semitism has risen by 1,000% since Ye's return to X. Also, I saw some posts saying that Israel confirmed that they used the Hannibal Directive on October 7th. Yeah, bro. I talked about this on my episode on what happened on October 7th, that the Hannibal Directive definitely came back alive during that day. Yo, Marin, get ready for Abba and his 67 IQ pet to make a video covering this Kanye thing and you being included. You know what? Yeah, they probably will, actually, now I think about it. They probably will, bro. They probably will. They're probably going to come at me, Sneeko, Nick, as usual. Dude, at this point, it's like, I genuinely believe, Abba and Preach are just liberals, bro. They're liberals. I don't know why people watch them. They're center-left commentators. That's what they are. They're center-left commentators that don't really stand on anything seriously so that they can just make money off of their bullshit commentary. You know what I mean?
It's alleged that Netanyahu Gallant used starvation.
And I'll tell y'all this. We got a way stronger support base than those bitch-ass niggas, bro. Way stronger. We might not have as many because they're a bigger channel, but our squad, OSS, we're way more real than they are. I'll tell y'all that. You look at some Abba and Preach fans, bro, look like fucking dorks. Over here, we keep it real. OSS, stand up.
As a tool of war. Just reading some commentary coming through from the ICC. The ICC saying it has reasonable grounds to believe they oversaw attacks on the civilian population. Well, let's go straight now to The Hague and join our correspondent.
I'll turn this volume up for you guys.
Anna Holligan, and also Yolande Nell, who's in Jerusalem. Anna, to you first of all, tell us a little bit more then about the reasoning that the international...
Someone said being liberal is profitable. Abso-fucking-lutely, bro. Absolutely, my friend. That's an understatement. Being liberal, though you might not be as popular sometimes, you'll never have to worry about your channels getting taken down. You'll never have to worry about being censored. You'll never have to worry about getting hit with hate speech. You'll never have to worry about getting shadow banned. Being a liberal is literally the best place you could be. The best place you could be. As long as you don't say wild shit, right? Like Destiny, I would consider him almost like a radical leftist, right? He said crazy shit oh, Trump supporters, I don't care if they get shot at or anything. As long as you don't say crazy shit like that, you're good. And Destiny's still here, by the way. Destiny's still here. So being a liberal absolutely is the way to go if your goal is to profit and make as much money as possible on YouTube, for sure, and all those social media platforms.
The Criminal Court is giving for issuing these arrest warrants.
I'm still studying the details. We've just got them in the last few minutes. So the ICC says the chamber considered that this is the pre-trial chamber at the International Criminal Court, considered that there are reasonable grounds to believe that both individuals, Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, both individuals intentionally and knowingly deprived the civilian population in Gaza of objects indispensable to their survival, including food, water, medicine and medical supplies, as well as fuel and electricity. It goes on.
I mean that's true. And here's the thing, because I always operate from the sense that I think you know what? Let me do a quick little poll here, guys. How many of you guys didn't really know about politics or don't follow politics until I started covering it? Give me ones in the chat if I helped you with becoming more aware about political stuff and shit going on outside of dating, outside of our normal content. Give me ones if I helped you with that, because I'm always under the assumption, right, that I'm talking to an audience that has some political knowledge, but like not super detailed. So this is why I know some of you guys might get annoyed and be like, Myron, why are you going through over this remedial bullshit? But the reason why is I assume that you guys aren't typical political commentator consumers, if that makes sense. So, all right, so yeah, so a lot of y'all like get your stuff through me. Okay, all right, like looks like half. So some of you guys already knew, and then some of you guys, yeah, okay. So it's about 50% of y'all. So about 50% like get your news through me, and then the other 50% is like, I kind of already know this shit. Okay, just want to get a gauge. So we're gonna go to Gaza, right? So that I can like really illustrate this. As you guys know, this is a tiny little strip of land in Israel, right? This used to belong to Israel, but they left around 2005 and Hamas came to power, 2006, 2007, somewhere around that time, right? Now, here's the thing, guys. When people say that Palestine is occupied, what they mean by that, okay, because a lot of people don't like, they just think like, oh, like the Israelis like took their land and This is what it really is, okay, chat? So you have Israel right here, you got the West Bank, and you got Gaza, right? Now, with Gaza, it's cordoned off, right? There's a huge like fence surrounding this place, crazy security. That's why I gave my thing, my monologue the other day where I have my suspicions that there was a conspiracy and more than likely they let the Hamas fighters break through, but that's a whole other conversation. The main point you guys need to know is that Gaza, okay, doesn't operate on its own. And what I mean by that is their power, their water, the food, etc. It all comes from Israel, chat. All of it comes from Israel, okay? So when we talk about people being mass starved and people not being able to eat, etc., it's because they are literally reliant upon Israel to bring in almost all their stuff, okay? These guys don't have an airport. They don't have their own economy, really. They don't have anything. Think of it like a big-ass city that is completely reliant upon its outside adversary for sustenance. That's what Gaza is. So when they held back food and supplies, right, Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, we got 2 million plus people in here that aren't getting food and water, right, and internet and Wi-Fi, etc. Now, Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, they rationalize it by saying, look, Hamas steals everything that goes in there. We don't want to give them aid because Hamas is going to steal it all. But in the process of them doing that, a lot of innocent people died. I think another telling thing, and I talked about this the other day, I don't know if you guys caught it. Well, actually, I mentioned it when we were doing a press conference, but some of you guys might not have been watching. Trump said, I think he kind of slipped up. He said, hey, we got 1.6 or 1.7 million Palestinians over there that we got to get out. Hold on one sec. Hold on. 1.6? 1.7? Guys, you know what? Let me just go ahead and Google it for you guys so you guys can see for yourself. Gaza's population was roughly 2.2 million, chat, before October 7th. Now you got the President of the United States saying it's 1.7 or 1.6 million over there. I know some of you guys in the chat are saying it's 2.4, some of you guys are saying 2.3. Look, we can argue over 100,000 here or whatever. The point is this, the bottom line is simply this. Throughout the bombing campaign, Israel spokespersons, I've seen them on Piers Morgan, I've seen them on CNN, I've seen them on a whole bunch of different shows. There's basically been a bunch of Israeli spokespersons, right, that have been doing damage control on large media platforms. And what they've been doing is when the host asks them or presses them on the civilian casualties, and they say, hey, we're getting reports that 20,000, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000 innocent Palestinians have been killed. What they do is they say, well, we've killed 20,000 Hamas fighters, and we don't know about the others, right? They kind of leave it blank like that. And for the whole year, they've been saying that Hamas has been lying about the deaths, right? Because it's been basically like their vital statistics board, which is run by Hamas. They've been the ones reporting the casualties, right? So there's been an enormous amount of back and forth between, Israeli talking heads for the war that represent the government, and then the Hamas vital statistics, and then obviously the news. There's been so many different numbers. No one knows for sure how many people have been killed. Nobody knows. But what I will say is this, that I found very interesting, and it was very telling when Donald Trump said this. We know, just off of what Donald Trump said, let's go conservative. Let's say 2 million. Let's say 2 million people were in Gaza. Trump said there was about 1.6 to 1.7 people that needs to be moved. That tells you off rip, at least 200,000 to 300,000 people are dead. Let's go even more conservative. Let's say 100,000 of them, 33% were Hamas fighters, which is not. But let's just say, that still means the best case scenario, where they killed an enormous amount of Hamas soldiers. We're still talking about 100,000 to 200,000 innocent people dead. And keep in mind, guys, the campaign that they've been doing, they've been bombing the fuck out of Gaza. Now, Gaza has 2 million people, but it's an extremely small land area. So it's extremely congested. Think of like a New York City, where everyone is on top of each other, big buildings, very dense from a population standpoint. So if you bomb a building and that building topples over, you could have had hundreds, if not thousands of people in that building, right? Now, they don't have the relief workers to be able to dig through the rubble. So they're finding dead bodies under the rubble every day. And then on top of that, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of missing people, presumably under the rubble, because they don't have the resources or the means to extract them from the rubble. So there's been a lot of people that have been, declared missing or declared dead with no corpse. And when Donald Trump said the other day during that press conference, I know you guys are watching me live, you guys saw that I caught it onto it, by Trump saying 1.7, 1.8, whatever. Now we know, even in Western media, by Western standards, which remember, they're going to be incentivized to bring the number down, even by Western standards, according to the President of the United States, we've lost at least 200,000 to 300,000 Palestinians. You can make the argument and say, oh, well, a bunch of them were Hamas fighters. I'll give that to you. Let's say 100,000 were. Still 200,000 people dead. And that's on the conservative side, chat. That's on the conservative side, right? I say all that to say this. Gaza is completely and wholly reliant on Israel to give them their aid. If they don't bring in humanitarian aid, they die because they don't have the ability to sustain themselves. That is what occupation is. That is why they're angry. That is why there hasn't been peace in that region for decades, because they are being occupied and all of their vital needs, human needs, are supplied to them by their adversary. And during times of war, your adversary has almost zero incentive to assist you. Now it sucks because innocent people are caught in the crossfire and they're dying from malnutrition, starvation, dehydration, not to mention all the bombs dropping on their head. That's where we are, chat. That's where we are. And, Western media has done a really good job of concealing the American public from this, telling them the truth. But when Trump said that the other day, that there's 1.7, 1.8 that need to be relocated, well, we know that they started at least 2.2, chat. At least. So anyway.
To say that their role was critical, their failure to facilitate relief by all means at their disposal. Also, it goes on, the Chamber also found reasonable grounds to believe that no clear military need other justification under international humanitarian law could be identified for the restrictions placed on access for humanitarian relief operations. Beyond this, just reading a little bit further down, finally the Chamber assessed that there are reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Netanyahu and Mr. Gallant bear criminal responsibility as civilian superiors for the war crime of intentionally directing attacks against the civilian population of Gaza. In this regard, the Chamber found that the material provided by the prosecution only allowed to make findings on 2 incidents. So these arrest warrants, actually, initially, they were kept secret, but one of the reasons why the ICC has released them now, they say, is to because they believe similar conduct may be ongoing, and they consider it in the interests of victims and their families that they are made aware of the warrant's existence. Apologies for reading most of that from the ICC. These details are just coming in. We're still digesting them here in The Hague, but this is a significant, considerable role, and it's more than just writing. These arrest warrants will have an impact because, of course...
and another reason, too, why this is so big, guys, is because... Again, politically incorrect shit, but I'm going to tell you guys what it is. Israel, guys, has been able to operate with impunity in the Middle East with aggression for decades. And the reason why is because the United States runs cover for Israel in the international community, right? When the UN does their votes to give the Palestinians a state, or whenever there's any type of movement, right, to create sovereignty with the Palestinians, or there's any type of accountability that they're trying to place on Israel, or sanctions or whatever, what ends up happening is Israel runs the United States threatens to retaliate against whoever is trying to punish Israel, and they basically chill out, right? Also, the United States is instrumental in the strategic treaties of certain nations to ensure Israel's security. What do I mean by this? Well, you guys know, right? You guys have been watching me now for a few days, if you have, or this week. We talked about the Suez Canal crisis, right? Back in like 1956 with President Nasser. Now, President Nasser was a leader in the Arab world, and many people respected him, former president of Egypt, right? Because he was one of the few presidents that stood up to the Israelis and beat them when they all tried to attack the Suez Canal and gain control of it, the French and Israel. Now, the United States backed Israel, right? And there was a series of wars after the fact. But long story short, what ended up happening was the United States basically brokered a deal where Israel would make peace with Egypt, because remember, Gaza used to be a part of Egypt, right? They brokered a peace between Egypt and Israel, and also Jordan and Israel. So at least it's like immediate contact states or countries are peaceful. So the only country that really borders Israel that's extremely hostile now is like Lebanon and a little bit of Syria, right? And we did this by basically saying, look, we're going to pay you, Egypt, we're going to pay you, Jordan, to be nice and play with Israel. And that's basically what happened, right? So throughout the Middle East, there's either been us paying off their adversaries or us destabilizing and taking their adversaries out of power. You look at someone like a Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, these individuals that we remove from power, but then you look at Egypt or Jordan, where we have good relations with them and they have good relations with Israel politically, and they work together. Even though their constituents, and what I mean by this is the Jordanians and the Egyptians, heavily dislike that Egypt is an ally of Israel. But they do it because Egypt is in a lot of debt, the economy's in the shitter, and they need our foreign aid. And this is why I think Donald Trump is so confident that Egypt is going to take the Palestinians. Because even though Egypt and Jordan don't want to take in a bunch of refugees, almost 2 million, by the way, I already know that Trump's going to play hardball and say, look, you guys don't have a choice here. You're either going to take these guys in or we're not going to give you financial aid anymore. And at that point, they're going to have to play ball. Just like Trump did with the tariffs, where he is willing to hurt our economy to make sure that Canada and Mexico complies, he'll do the same thing to Jordan and Egypt. Now, obviously, Donald Trump called Trudeau's bluff. He knew that him and Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, would fold. He knew they would fold. That's why he was so confident with saying, we're going to put 25% tariffs. And then when they retaliated, they said, well, we're going to do 25% tariffs too. Trump actually responded on Truth Social, said, we know if you guys do that, we're going to go to 50% tariffs. Because he understands that about 80% of our trade is, like for our shit, is done here in the United States. We produce a lot of our own stuff, right? Food, gas, shit like that, I mean. Other stuff we import, obviously. But when it comes to our deals with Mexico and Canada, we don't need their international trade as much as they need ours. So Trump, knowing this, said, I'm going to use this as leverage. And he won. And he won. And they caved in. They beefed up their borders, and now we ended the trade wars. But it's extremely ballsy to do that. Most presidents don't do shit like that because it can strain diplomatic ties. You know, obviously the Biden administration was a lot nicer. You know, they were much kinder with this shit, but Trump didn't give a fuck.
Every member of the ICC, more than 100 countries.
Which is good for us. But with that said, he's going to do the same thing to Egypt and Jordan.
Are now obliged to arrest both of these individuals, Benjamin Netanyahu, Yoav Gallant, if they set foot on...
Someone said Egypt won't fold. Yeah, they will, bro. Do you know how much money we give Egypt?
...on their territory. That is one of the requirements of countries signed up to the ICC. So this will have an impact on potentially the movement of both of these individuals.
Anna, thank you very much for that. Appreciate you making your way through what is a lot of detailed text, Anna, as you look at that statement from the International Criminal Court. And we're going to cross now to Jerusalem. Our correspondent, Yolande Nell, is there. We're also seeing this is from the former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who says the ICC arrest warrants...
Oh, and that was the other thing I was going to say. This is like the first time, like these are ICC arrest warrants coming out is like one of the rare times that Israel's being held accountable on the international stage, because they almost always get away with shit.
Are a mark of shame for the ICC. I am suspecting, Yolande, that it's probably way too early to get any feedback or any commentary reaction from there in Jerusalem. If you have some, please do tell us. The other thing I want to ask you about, of course, is the news from hospital officials in the north of Gaza saying many people have been killed in the latest Israeli airstrikes, and what is going on there with regards to attempts at a rescue operation.
Yeah, I mean, starting off with the International Criminal Court, we haven't had an official response yet from the Israeli Prime Minister. We understand that he's currently meeting the US Special Envoy Amos Hochstein, who's come here from Beirut to talk about a ceasefire in Lebanon, a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. But we can go back to May and get some indication from then of the Prime Minister's likely response, because when the news that was put out by the chief prosecutor that he had applied for these arrest warrants, Mr. Netanyahu back then called this an outrageous decision. He said that it was a moral outrage of historic proportions, that it would cast an everlasting mark of shame on the International Criminal Court. He said that Mr. Khan created a twisted and false moral equivalence between the leaders of Israel and the henchmen of Hamas.
That's funny. They got mad because, oh, how dare you indict us alongside these criminals? But they did the same thing. One just gets backed by the United States.